to my YouTube channel, Thrift and Need with Anna Marie. My name is Anna, and I'd also like to welcome you to my first video here on YouTube. Today I plan on making artisan sourdough loaves as well as Dutch baby pancakes with my discard. The reason I started this channel as well as making this video is because I just wanted to show my friends and family who have been interested in my sourdough journey that it is possible for you to make bread for your families with fresh ingredients and you know everything that's going in it. That's really the goal of me and my husband, is that we want to know where our food comes from. And although we don't have a homestead, we don't have animals, things like that, it is possible to start in a simple way such as bread making. So I got my sourdough starter about 2 weeks ago now, so I'm not claiming to know what I'm doing. You are just really here joining me as I learn the process, and I'm hoping that along the way you also learn a little bit too, or feel a little brave and want to start your own sourdough starter. So a little disclaimer, I did buy my sourdough starter off Facebook Marketplace, so honestly that's kind of a little tip if you don't feel like you have the patience to grow and create your own sourdough starter. Just find a friend, find someone that has started their own that is established. Mine has been going at least since May, and I got it 2 weeks ago. So I was pretty much ready to bake with immediately, and that's what I kind of was hoping for. So a little bit about me before we really dive into this video. I'm 23 years old. I got married in August of this year, and I graduated in December with a master's degree in occupational therapy. So I recently relocated several states away to be with my husband following graduation. And in this limbo period between graduating and getting a job in occupational therapy, I'm really trying to dive into my homemaking endeavors, which includes sourdough starter. So I hope you will join along and we'll just learn together. Miss Ellie is on vacuum duty. Everyone in this house has a job and she does it so well. Isn't that right? I'm back in the kitchen now. We're gonna go ahead and start this sourdough loaf process. My starter, I fed it at about 9:30 this morning just to see if it would be a little bit better in time for me to bake. It's now 1:15, so I'm gonna go ahead and start mixing the ingredients. So I am following again the recipe from Farmhouse on Boone. She has a great artisan loaf recipe that's very easy for beginners as well, and it's going to yield 2 loaves. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to place my bowl on my scale. I'm going to go ahead and zero that out because we're not worried about the weight of the bowl. So then I'm going to go ahead and add 500 grams of unbleached all-purpose flour. So I've got 503 grams, not a big deal that it's not perfect. Now I'm going to add 200 grams of whole wheat flour. Let me go ahead and zero that. And now we're going to add 250 grams of bread flour. Now this step I've heard is not necessary. If you don't have bread flour or don't want to use bread flour, you just have to add more all-purpose, but all-purpose requires more water. So I'm just going to stick with the bread flour for now so that I don't overcomplicate things. So now that I've done that, I'm going to take this off and I'm going to get 650 grams of room temperature filtered water. Right, so I'm just going to get myself a cup. Go ahead and zero that out. I'm going to add 650 grams. Alright, so that's 418. I'm going to add some more. I'm going for about 232 more grams. Add it. scale aside. I'm gonna grab a spoon. Alright, so I cleaned up a little bit, finished mixing this. And this is what I'm working with right now. This is just all the different types of flour in the water. I'm just gonna let that sit for about 30 minutes so the flour can absorb as much of the water as possible. And then I'll get to, it's been 30 minutes since I last combined the flour and the water. So now I'm gonna start adding the salt in the sourdough starter. So just place a small bowl on a scale and you're gonna add 20 grams of salt. Okay, gonna add that in. Place the bowl on the scale, zero it out, then I'm going to add 200 grams of my sourdough starter. So you can see the one I fed this morning, I just put this little hair tie around it and you can see it's already doubled in size, so it should be perfect to use right now. So I'm going to add 200 grams. We have just about exactly 200 grams. Ellie's trying to join us right now, making sure there's no vacuum duties to carry out. So I got 200 grams exactly. So that was the perfect amount. So now that I just finished mixing my sourdough starter and salt into the flour water combination. So now it's much less sticky. It's still getting on my hands, but before my hand was coated in comparison to now. So what I'm gonna do is just let this sit, cover it with my tea towel, and let it sit for about 30 minutes to rest. And then we'll be back to do more. I'm back. It has sat for 30 minutes. Here's what it's looking like right now. So what I'm gonna do now is start a series of stretch and folds. I'm gonna do the stretch and folds about every 15 to 30 minutes over the next 3 to 6 hours. So what I'm gonna do is just get the dough as best I can. I'm gonna bring it up as far as it can go and fold it over. Turn the bowl, repeat the process. Alright, so you can see it's already looking a little bit better. I'm going to come back in about 15 more minutes and do that again. Ellie is back on vacuum duty. Go girl, go. Go, go, go. I'm ready to do another series of stretch and folds. So I'm just going to remove the tea towel, which I think I forgot to mention in the previous stretch and folds, just cover it in between. So I'm just going to do that same process again. Just stretch it as high as it'll go, fold it over on itself, and just turn the bowl. This, I also forgot to mention, is what gives it the nice holes in the airy structure. That is typical of sourdough bread. And I'd also like to mention that each recipe differs on how often you should do the stretch and folds, how many times, how many hours, how many minutes apart. It can get really complicated. And I don't even know that I followed the recipe right the first time. I think I did it way too much. And my loaves turned out beautiful still with nice holes. So, you know, it's okay to experiment. It's okay not to get things exactly right. And it's kind of fun just to see how it's going to turn out. At the end of the day, you're still going to get bread and you're still going to eat it, whether according to bakers it's the most beautiful thing you've ever done or not. So that's kind of my mindset with this. Even though I'm very much of a perfectionist, I'm trying to just kind of go with the flow and let it slow me down and accept that everything's not always going to be perfect. Once again, looking kind of like that loaf shape. I'll cover it again and be back in 15 more minutes. I'm just warming up some lunch right now, if you hear that. I'm back. It's been about 15 minutes. Gonna do more stretch and folds. Does sourdough baking make you tired? Vacuum duty's really hard, isn't it? It's okay, you can take a nap. Stretch and folds again. After this, I'm probably going to start waiting 30 minutes to do them. We do have to go to dinner at like 5:30, so I'm going to experiment with leaving it on my counter for a while to do some of the fermenting and the rising. And we'll just see what happens. Because life happens, and sometimes we just have to go with it. Here we are. Like I said, I'll be back in about 30 minutes, I think. 30 more minutes have passed, so I did a few more stretch and folds. Just gonna cover it with my tea towel again and be back in about 30 more minutes. I just finished performing my last set of stretch and folds before we head to dinner. I'm just gonna let it rise on the counter covered with a tea towel, and I'll worry about the shaping later when we get back. It's been sitting. I did put it in the oven with the light on, did not turn the oven on, but just to give it a warmer environment since it is about 30 something degrees outside. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to get the dough out onto a lightly floured surface. I'm gonna try not to deflate it at all. Do the best you can. So I've got my dough out on the surface. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flour the center just a little bit, about the halfway line. Not a lot, but I'm about to cut it in half with my dough knife. I'm just gonna split it down the middle. So that just kept it from sticking quite as bad. Just going around it using the tension of the workspace. With lightly floured fingers to make that ball shape that you can see here. I'm gonna let this sit for 30 minutes to develop a skin on top, which will help with the final shaping that I'll do soon. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip the loaves over for the final shaping. So I'm gonna flip them onto the side with the skin. I'm using my bench scraper. And what you're gonna do for this step is you're gonna bring the sides together. So you're gonna bring this to the center, the top to the center, then you're gonna bring the sides to the center all together. Then you're gonna roll it into a ball and bring it towards you. And you're just gonna kind of do similar to what I showed you in the last step. Again, making that tension on the surface. And I can already tell, like I said in the beginning, this is my second time making loaves. And although I don't know the end process and how it's gonna turn out this time, I can already tell that I'm getting better at the shaping part. This took me so long last time, and I had to watch so many videos while I was shaping the dough. So I'm already proud that this is going better. You're gonna lightly flour a banneton basket. And I'm gonna flip it over into that, seam side up. Like that. I'm going to put these inside of a plastic bag. Good morning and happy New Year's Eve. It's currently almost 9:30 right now, so my loaves have been in for about 12.5 hours in the refrigerator. So I'm about to pull those out. I'm going to preheat my oven to 500 degrees. Alright, so I just grabbed a piece of parchment paper. You'll notice a lot of bakers use brown parchment paper, probably just because it's prettier, but this is what I have. So here is my loaf. I just took the plastic bag off. Here's what it's looking like. What I'm going to do is just flip it onto the parchment paper. I'm going to grab some flour. Some bakers use rice flour, but I just am going to use the all-purpose again. They say lightly flour it. So I have two options here. I have the scoring tool, and then I just have a plain razor blade. I did notice that it was harder for me to use the scoring tool. I needed to hold something a little bit closer. So now I'm going to go ahead and score it. You can do it however you want. I think I'm going to trial two different methods. So I think I'm just going to try the X. And I have seen a lot of people say that the tip to pretty scoring patterns is a nice deep cut. So I'm trying to get really deep here. Just to give you another view, here's what I'm working with right now. I was just using a standard razor blade to make deep cuts in X-shaped pattern. I also just wanted to show you my sourdough starter. I have put it in this large container that I cleaned yesterday. It just has a glass lid, and I left it with a tea towel half covered, kind of like this, last night. And you can see how much it's grown since about 9:30. So I did this just so that I could put it in the fridge and it'd be ready to go, be put into a dormant state. And you can see it's really happy, all those nice bubbles. Alright, my cast iron just got done preheating. Grab that. Take the lid off. I'm going to bring my loaf over. Alright, so I just put my loaf in the preheated Dutch oven. The oven is set to 500 degrees. I'm about to top it with the lid and stick it in the oven for 20 minutes. Miss Ellie is getting excited about the bread this morning. So here's what I've got going. I just took the lid off. The loaf has been baking for about 20 minutes at 500 degrees. So what you're going to do now is remove the lid, reduce the temperature to 475, and we're going to put it back in for 25 minutes. It has been 25 minutes. I'm going to pull it out. So this is my favorite part, the grand reveal. This makes the long process of sourdough so much more worth it. And the most exciting part is I have a whole nother loaf that I get to put in the oven.